unmute yourself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, done.
Going live.
Okay.
Hello and a very good evening to the workshop series organized by MNET. MNET has put together a series of workshops for teachers and educators by leading experts in the field as part of ELT to explore some of the core competencies using innovative tools and techniques. My warm welcome to the speaker, Mrs. T. Sentilkani, and all the educators who have gathered from different parts of India and different corners of the world. Your participation ignites and motivates us to push for better planning. And what binds us is the passion. A common passion to be to be effective teachers, educators, and research scholars who constantly try to upgrade themselves as an English language teacher. And moreover, it's great to have a fraternity of teachers in India and abroad who are always ready to collaborate and share the ideas, experiences, knowledge, and best expertise to help build this community of practice. I thank the speaker, Mrs. T. Sentikani, who at one call agreed for this workshop. So without wasting much time, let us begin the session. Today's workshop is on task-based learning. Mrs.
Hello.
T. Sentilkani, she is an MA, MPhil, BEd, PGDELT. She is the BT assistant at Panchayat Union Middle School, Murugampalayam, Tirupur, Tamil Nadu. She has 29 years of teaching experience, in total 19 years in school with English medium and 10 years in government school. She is good at phonetics and grammar and has also played the role of a resource person in training teachers in a number of training programs. She believes in helping anyone who's interested and who's in need of any assistance related to her specialized area open-mindedly. Other than her educational qualification, she has completed the upper intermediate online course conducted by the British Council. She is also interested in drawing and painting and has painted the walls of the school with the help of the students and rendered helping hand in planting saplings in school along with other teachers financially too. We are very gratified by your presence, ma'am, and we welcome you once again. And now the Zoom platform is to you.
Okay.
Hand over to you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Reno. Hello.
Yes.
Yeah.
We can hear you,
Yes.
ma'am.
Okay. I'm Sentilkani. She found it difficult to pronounce my name. Once again, I'm Sentilkani, working as a BT assistant. That is a Bachelor of Training. That is BT stands for Bachelor of Training. I'm working as a BT assistant, graduate teacher in at a government school in Tamil Nadu. As she told, I have 29 years of teaching experience, 19 years in schools with English as their medium of instruction, and 10 years I've been working in a government school since 2010 for 10 years. And I've chosen English not by chance or not on compulsion. As she rightly pointed out, as Ms. Renu rightly pointed out, I chose because I was very passionate towards learning English, and I'm still. Being a teacher of English for so many years, I feel that I've achieved very less in the field of education, but I'm interested to do something more at every chance, at every opportunity. And I'm very thirsty for knowledge. My thirst for knowledge never is being satiated. Like the hungry Oliver Twist, who asked for something more. I keep asking for something more, and I'm always willing to do something more in the field of education. And I'm always willing to learn to get something, to grab at any opportunity, to satiate my hunger also, hunger of learning. And, not only adults, not only the teachers, but even the students also have this kind of thirst and hunger, and we should accept that. Because they are willing to get and they grab at anything. They are willing to get anything from the teachers which they could get in their process of learning. And we should admit a fact that we can get to know from the students also. We can learn plenty of things from the students also. And every day, at least, we learn something from the students. So I could share one of my experiences here in the beginning, because that was the beginning of my career. And I was handling standard class 9 by then. And I was in that particular class one day. I was given some work by one of my superiors, and that work had to be completed urgently. And I wanted the students to remain quiet. And one student who was quite talkative and restless, he kept on talking. I don't want to mention his name here. He kept on talking. So I called him a few times and I told him not to talk. But each time I called him, his immediate reply was, "Ma'am, I'm not talking. I was only saying." I was not talking, I was only saying. So I repeatedly told this again and again, "Please don't talk." But his reply was the same again and again. So this repetition made me think. And on that day, I searched for the difference between, because I could find there was some difference between this talking and saying, because I was blaming him for talking, but he was showing his neighbor, and he was telling that he was not talking, he was saying something. So I don't know whether he knew the difference himself, but it made me think. And I went in search of the difference between those two on that day. So that's how, if a teacher is open-minded, we could learn plenty of things from the students ourselves. And today's topic, it has really made me look back at my activities and experiences as a teacher of English. And I'm highly thankful to Mr. Satish Kumar Thakre, who had faith in me and who has chosen me for this venture. So now at this moment, I call out to each one who's interested in English, either as a teacher or as a learner, to come along with me, to accompany me in this 1 hour's journey. As I told at first, I'm very much interested in phonetics and grammar. And I've handled training programs also. I've been the resource person for a number of training programs. And not only at the training program, and even if the teachers ask me separately, individually, I'm always willing to teach them these two, especially phonetics. So today's topic is task-based learning. And this task-based learning, this topic itself, it is quite familiar to me, because I've been practicing this for years. From the time I had started working in schools with English medium. So it's familiar to me. If you admit, because I think all of us are teachers of English, if you agree with me, you could agree on one aspect, that the teachers of English are mostly the favorite teachers of the students, because we handle these methods, especially this approach, task-based teaching approach in our, definitely. So in our classes, so we are the favorite teachers for our students. I found it in many schools. So this being the case of English, we do something more, not like, so I wouldn't definitely underrate the other teachers who handle other subjects, but we always tend to do something more apart from the syllabus, apart from what is given in the textbooks. So if this is the condition of teachers of English, and when we talk about English, let's just think about the position of English among the other languages. Actually, the most popular language, or the language which is used by most native speakers, is Chinese, Mandarin Chinese. Totally, there are 918 million people, 18 million native speakers speak Mandarin Chinese, and about 460 million people speak Spanish. Native speakers speak Spanish, and that becomes the second popular language. And the third one is English, having 400 million native speakers. When this is the case, there are 1,268 million people who can speak English all over the world. Other than these native speakers, I'm just telling totally, there are 1,268 million people who can speak English all over the world. And there are 200 billion people who can speak, who can use English with basic competencies in writing as well as in speaking also. Either in writing or in speaking or in both. They can use English like that. And in today's scenario, if you keep updating yourselves in every field, you can find that over 90% of international airlines, over 90%, not 19, 90% of international airlines have chosen English as their language of choice. And 1/3 of scientific papers are presented in English. And half of businesses, half of business deals are done in English. And 35% of internet users are English speakers or English users. English users or English speakers. And music and other fields of entertainments are dominated by English. And most of the international businesses are done in English. You could find signs and advertisements of advertisements in English in any part of the world, in any part of the globe. So English has the largest vocabulary when comparing to other languages. So this is the condition of English, and it has crossed the borders, and it has reached every nook and corner of the globe. And we have to admit that English has become indispensable in most of the people's everyday's life. It's very difficult to talk without a word in English even in our mother tongue. That has become the case today. So at this scenario, at this situation, I feel that students, this generation, the current generation, they have to strengthen themselves, their language abilities. They have to strengthen their language abilities, especially in English, and for which we cannot find any other field more compatible, more suitable except education. Education is a field that keeps changing every moment, and so I think in this field the teachers can do the change. The teachers actually, the field of education teaches new techniques, new and different techniques to the teachers to be employed in their classes and to give more innumerable opportunities to the students. And they can be the ambassadors, they can take the new methods to the students. And that's how, when such necessity has arisen in such place, we can feel the necessity of this task-based education. I just wanted to show you a slide. Okay, just a moment. Can you see?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Put in slideshow, ma'am.
Yeah. Just a moment. So I don't know what happens. Sorry. So let us continue. I'll try afterwards.
You can share your screen, ma'am. Let it be. You go one after the
Yeah.
other.
Yeah. Can you see now?
Yes.
Yes.
Slideshow.
Okay. Yeah. So, as I told, Mandarin Chinese is the first popular language 900 with 918 million native speakers, and the Spanish is the second most popular language with 460 million native speakers, and English has become the third most popular language with about 400 million native speakers. Okay, so let us come back to the class now. Okay, so when we talk about this task-based learning, I could say that this was actually years ago, not very recently. When I talk about years ago, I'm not talking about the Gurukula stage, but I talk about some 100 years ago, maybe in the 20th century. So there in 1970s and 1980s, this particular method was called communicative activity in language classes. It was called communicative activity because I studied in those stages, actually in that stage, but it was not very popular then. This approach, even this communicative activities were not popular then, because when I studied, our teachers did not have. I mean, we did not have much fun in English classes. We were only lectured, and we were asked to sit very stably, and we were not allowed to move. We were not allowed to look either this side or that side, and we were not allowed to look at our watches whether it's time. We were not allowed to inquire. We were not allowed to ask questions. We were scared. The teacher had the full control, complete control, and those days had teacher centered classes, if you agree with me. And then after I started my career, I could feel, even those days we didn't have, when I was learning, when I was a school student, I don't remember seeing any other teaching aid except chart papers. And even those chart papers would be shown to us only when the educational officers had visited our schools. And I remember seeing only substitution tables on the chart papers. So, I mean, after I started teaching, in the beginning of my career, we had started using, me along with the other teachers had started using the other types of teaching aids. But even then, the e-resources were not available. We had to depend on libraries, books, and so on. We had so many rules for grammar. We used particular grammar books prescribed for our schools. And I remember using Wren and Martin. Nowadays, I don't depend on Wren and Martin at all. That's very, depending on one particular book, there is a variety of books in net. But previously, we had used Wren and Martin and a few books which had been suggested and which had been kept in our libraries. And if a child in those days wanted to change the order of the alphabet in any way, it was not allowed, because a rule was a rule. But nowadays, the scenario has completely changed. As I had told about students, nowadays students, I'll just cite an example. A few times I had gone to the class thinking that trying to share something with the students, trying to share something new, which I thought new with the students. And I would go to the class thinking that the students did not know about what I was going to say. So immediately I started, there would be the one student or students, the ones who would immediately get up and tell, yes, ma'am, I already have read it in Google News. So that's how today's students are. They play smart, they are smart. And we should keep ourselves smarter. We should cater to the needs of those students. We should keep ourselves smarter. So this is where we should plan well in preparing our tasks. So as I told, these tasks had been called communicative activities previously. Okay, right. So can you see the slide? Can you see the slide?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So earlier,
No, ma'am.
no?
No.
Okay. Right. Can you see now?
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, ma'am.
Okay. So I want to show full screen. Okay. So earlier it was, sorry, it was communication activity, and now it's called task-based learning. Okay, that's how it's called nowadays. It's called task-based learning. So the children are given, instead of only communicating, it was a bit rigid. In previous years, previous days, the methods which were followed had so many rules and restrictions. And now the tasks that we give to the students give enough freedom to the students and to the teachers also to make alterations here. So just a minute. Okay. So that's how the task-based activity learning works.
Ma'am,
Actually, it was,
you
yeah.
continue with the sharing of the screen. You will be seen in the corner because
Okay, so you mean to say that I needn't,
keep
yeah.
it over.
Okay, it's okay. I'll do it in the next, with the next
Okay.
slide. Okay. So what happens is this kind of task-based learning. It was initially task-based teaching, task-based instruction. Now it is task-based learning. It gives more freedom for the students, and the main motto of this kind of learning is that it enables the students to learn in real-life situations. Actually, real-life situations are created. It enables the students to learn in real-life situations to acquire the skills of the language in a quite natural and genuine background, and it gives enough confidence to the students. So the tasks are prepared with care, the purpose to the students, because there should be a purpose, there should be an objective, and with an objective, the tasks are prepared by the teacher and they are presented to the students. So I could cite various number of tasks, and they can be then. Excuse me. Yeah. So these can be the objectives of task-based learning. Okay, there are so many objectives. I've written only a few. Actually to provide opportunities, more opportunities for the students, and to promote confidence in the minds of the students. And tasks are used for pedagogical processes, not only for learning a language personally, but it is used for pedagogical processes, and it replaces what we had felt initially had been traditional approach, and this task-based learning replaces traditional approach, and it allows the students to enter real world situations, real world activities, and the tasks can be like these. You can name these, seeing the picture, you can name these tasks anyhow. They name, they do some team activity, group activity. It may be preparing an article, or getting ready for a language game, or writing a story, or it can be a script writing. And this is an extempo. The students can do individual activities also, individual tasks also, and this may be planning for a tour, and conversation, okay, between dialogues or conversation between students, and role play, not role play, skits, enacting in skits, and describing something, then playing the role of a teacher. Not only teacher, any number of roles can be played by the students. So that's how the tasks are planned by the teachers, and the children get enough confidence by playing all these activities. And when these activities are done, when we continue with a task based education nowadays, the assessment is done only at the end of the task. The seeing the outcome of the task, the assessment is done. It is not done in between. It is done only, assessing the outcome of the task. The assessment is done at the end of the task. And these roles are played by the students. And we do all these activities in our class also, in our regular classes also. And these tasks are constructed along with the lessons itself, our lessons itself. And when the students do these tasks in a team, in teams, we are not supposed to dissuade the students. When they perform poorly, we are not supposed to dissuade the students. When their language does not reach the expected level, the teacher's role is to encourage the students and not to dissuade. Actually, the students, each student has to be involved in doing the task. So when you divide the students into teams at the first level, the students have to be involved. All the students have to be involved. And if any student does not perform well, if the outcome, language outcome is not good, the teachers are not expected to dissuade the students or give any negative remark to the students. So errors, the children automatically will commit errors. For example, I can give you an example. I've given so many tasks in my classes. And when I teach questions that start with auxiliaries, that is, we call it in general, normally we call it yes or no questions, or we call them polar questions also. So when I conduct an activity for training the students and asking questions, it's a skill, So when I train, we play a game called 10 questions and 3 guesses, a questioning game. So we would send, the children would come forward to play the game, actually. It's not any student would come forward. A student have good learning ability, even such student, a studious student, not only a studious student, even a student with less learning ability also would come forward willingly to participate in such games, because tasks make the children come forward, come out of their shells. So what happened, what we do is we send one student out, and along with the other students, we would choose one particular material from the class, and we would allow the student inside the class, and he or she has to ask 10 questions, 10 questions that to derive the answer either yes or no. So those questions have to be strictly yes or no questions or polar questions. So they would, before the game started itself, I would teach the children, I would tell the children that the structure of the sentence, that is how the structure of a sentence has to be. So I would write on the board how an auxiliary, how a yes or no question is framed, the structure, how it has to be framed. A few examples, with a few examples, I would show them, I would just tell them, instruct them how the questions have to be framed. And the children who come inside, they may remember, they may forget. Some questions they may ask correctly, and some questions they may not ask correctly. We never mind. So we don't correct them every now and then. If they are not able to convey their ideas, of course, the teacher has to help. But if the students are able to understand what the person conveys, that's well and good. The language is for communication. So if the listeners are able to understand, we encourage them. For example, if they ask about something, is the object white in color? Instead of asking like that, if the child may ask, the object is white in color. So a statement can be changed into a question also. We cannot find mistake in such things. And if the grammatical structure is wrong also, we should not try to find fault with the students. And we should not dissuade the student. We should not criticize the student before the others, because we cannot memorize the structure or grammar patterns, or we cannot memorize the vocabulary. Okay, all these things cannot be done, because when you point out errors and when you dissuade the students before the other students, criticize the students before others, before his peers, what happens is they completely lose their confidence. Their level of confidence goes to the lowest level. That's why I say, yeah, errors can be rectified, errors can be mended in no time. They can be mended in no time, but the confidence shattered will take a long time. At times, it will not be cured at all. It cannot be rectified at all. Some children, they would start stammering. They would start stammering. It's all because of the fear that we create. The kind of hesitation that we create, the shame that we create in the class. That's what it happens in places. So such self-confidence, disturbed self-confidence, it will take a long time to be rectified, to be cured. And as I told, memorizing structures and memorizing grammar patterns, it's really not a good method at all. Because when I started working as a teacher in a government school, my superior, she told me that I should teach the children 10 words a day. I should write 10 words on the board, and I should make the children find the meanings of those 10 words every day. And the next day, I have to check whether every child has done the homework, and I should check whether they have learnt those words with the meaning. And after checking, I should give the next day itself another set of 10 words. So just for her sake, though I did not agree with her, I had to follow this, practice this for some time. Then I was not able to agree with it, and I stopped, because it was like torturing the children. It was actually, making the children, compelling the children to learn something in an artificial atmosphere. It definitely would not help them to learn at all. So making them learn on compulsion, it's not going to give good result at all. Relating the words, even though they learn a word a day, if we relate that particular word with their real life situation, they would never forget in their life at all. This would definitely help. I could recall a short story. It's not actually an imaginary story, it's true. I suppose it's true. Actually, there was a poet, Greek poet and lyricist. His name was Simonides. Some of you may be familiar with this story. His name was Simonides, and you know very well the situation, the condition of poets in olden days. They had to be supported by wealthy people. So what they did was, what he did was, he wrote lyrics on simple things, nature, but he wouldn't write on people. But he was supported by an honorable man, a noble man, and he was a boxer by profession. His name was Scopus. So one day, what happened was, Scopus, he won in boxing, and he got victory over his opponent, and he wanted to celebrate that. He asked um, Simonides to write a poem on his victory. Simonides was against writing poems on human beings and their wealth and their pride. He did not agree with that anyhow. He had to do something for his for his patron. So what he did was, he wrote more than half of the poem about two Greek gods of, twin gods of boxing. There are gods for everything in Greek. So god of love, a god of war. So likewise, god of fire. Likewise, there had been two gods, twin gods for boxing. They are Castor and Pollux, Castor and Powlux, Castor and Pollux. So these two gods were there. So Simonides thought about these two gods, and he wrote his praises on these two gods at first. He started the poem with them, and he wrote nearly half of the poem praising them. And at last, he included Scopus nearly by the end. So when the poem was given to Scopus, you just can imagine how displeased and how infuriated he must have been. So seeing the poem, he felt really bad, and he told Simonides, actually he had assured to give a bag full of wealth, a bag full of gold. So now he had told, okay, you have written in praise of the Greek gods in half of the poem, so you will get half from me. You collect your remaining half from the gods. He told like that, and he offered only half of the reward. And at last, Scopas, he arranged for a feast. He arranged for a party to all his relatives and friends. And on the day of the feast, everyone had arrived inside and everyone was seated at their tables. And Simonides was one among them. It was going on, the feast was going on. And at that time, a servant entered and he told that Simonides was very earnestly sought by two visitors, wanted by two visitors. So he had to go out and he went out to meet his visitors. But as after he came out, he could find nobody outside. And finding nobody outside, he turned to come inside, to re-enter. But before he entered the building, the main hall, the whole building collapsed. And nobody was alive, including Scopas. Everyone was dead. And the whole village or the town, it gathered up there. And they tried to remove the debris and they wanted to find the corpse. But the corpse were beyond recognition. They were smashed. And they could not find out whose corpse was that. They could not identify. They could not find the identity of each corpse. So Simonides was brought to that place. He was a father of memory techniques, father of mnemonics. There's a memory techniques you might have heard about being teachers of language, mnemonics. So he was a father of the father of mnemonics, and what he did was he related every time he does that. He did that. So whenever persons entered, he, depending on the kind of dress that he wore and the place that they chose, the place of each person at the table, at the feast table. So he related to that and he identified each one who died on that particular day. So each one's corpse, which was found under the debris, was identified by Simonides. So the reason I point out this technique here is that anything can be remembered not by rote memory, but by relating that particular word or term or even grammar pattern or vocabulary. Anything could be remembered just by relating things with the real life situation. That's what he was doing. And that's why he is still remembered. So that's how things have to be taught to the students, I feel. And actually, this task-based learning, I told about what a task is. A task is a project or an activity that is planned, designed by a teacher and presented before the students. And the students, if the teachers make their goals, the students play their roles. That's it. That's a task. And when this task is done, there are some stages which they have to undergo. So the first stage can be called pre-task and the second stage can be called task cycle. And the third stage is post-cycle. So the first stage, in the first stage, actually before the first stage starts itself, the teacher has to be planned well. She has to make herself planned well and she has to come prepared to the class with the task. And now in the first stage, in the pre-task stage, the teacher introduces the task to the students. She has to tell the rules, she has to tell the structure, she has to tell the expectations or objectives which has to be fulfilled by the end of the task to the students. And so the pre-task activity, the pre-task stage, this is mainly dominated by the teacher. She gives instructions to the students and she divides the students into groups or teams. Smaller groups always would give good result. And she divides the students into groups and she presents them a task. And the second stage is task cycle. So at this stage, what the students do is they sit together, they discuss, they debate, they share, they do alterations, they give importance to each one's opinion, and what they do is at last they come up with a shape. They give a shape to their task. The task may be anything. It may be making an interview, online interview, or a personal interview, or meeting with the doctor, meeting a collector, or it can be, as I told at first itself, it can be a presentation, it can be a story writing, or it can be writing scripts for a story, short story. So whatever maybe the task is, the students should be allowed to use all the resources that are available to them. So they cannot be asked to copy anything from anywhere, but they have to do it on their own, but they have to use the resources. Like if at all they write something, they should have the dictionaries to refer to the meaning. And if they wanted some property, like to write, to present, to draw, those resources can be used. Those resources have to be exploited completely by the students. They have to use all those things. And the students are not allowed to use mobile phones and to find the meanings in the class, but dictionaries as of now. And the next one, when you come to the next stage, now the second stage, the students give a very good form to their task, and they are ready with their task now to be presented. Okay, so in the first stage, there is pre-task stage. The teacher gives instruction and she guides. And in the next stage, there is task cycle. What the students do is they practice, they discuss, they share, and they practice the task. And the last stage comes where they perform. The students, they perform, they produce. Okay, they perform what they have practiced so far in their previous stage, and they produce their result. So that is the outcome. That shows how much language abilities they have acquired, how much language skills they have acquired, whether the expected result has been met with or not. It could be assessed only at that stage. The outcome will not be same for each participant. That we know surely. But it is here the students are assessed. So depending on the outcome, the assessment is done. And after the presentation or performance, after the students' performance, the other students, when one team presents, the other students who watch, they are asked to give their reviews. That's what I do in my classes. Instead of the teacher giving the review, the teacher giving the opinion or suggestions, I make the students do it on their own. I usually tell them not to give any negative opinion, but the negative opinions, if there is any, that has to be given in the form of suggestion. So instead of telling it should not be done like that, the students can say, this could have been done like that, or this can be done like that. So the children have to learn to know how to give their suggestions also. So the children's opinion matter, the students, other students, the onlookers' opinion really matters. Their review has to be done in the third stage. So I hope I made it clear. The pre-stage, task cycle, and the post-stage. Every task comes through these three stages. And by this, the teachers are not supposed to stop. And what we have to do is we have to make the children recall, reminisce what has happened in the class. And we have to give the continuation of what has happened in the class, what they have done in the class, the particular day. So we have to give them some homework, which is not equal to the task that they have completed in the class, but which should be a continuation of what they have done in the class. It should be milder than that. It may be writing their opinions, writing their experience, putting their experience in writing in a paragraph or in an essay, or in the form of a drawing or whatsoever. So they have to recall the experience in one or the other form. That's what would allow the students to retain that particular task in their minds. They could play any role. You know, when I had worked in school, in one of the schools, uh, which had medium of English as its medium of instruction, it was we had a wonderful experience. There is I posted. I mean, I had worked as, I did not mention here, in matriculation schools. I had worked, but I had, for 5 years I had worked as the principal of an institution also. So I had written a letter in the name of God. So I just wrote as if God writes a letter to children, and I put up in the notice board. And what we did was, we'd make an announcement level wise. We had divided the students into 3 stages, 3 or 4 stages, and we had announced prizes for the students who come up with reply to the letter of God. So the children came up with beautiful replies. They were their original letters, and the prizes were given. So it would create the interest. Such different activities would create the interest of the students, and to acquire the skills of learning. So, though it is an imaginary activity, they cannot definitely meet God, but it is an interesting imagination. It's not actually, you may ask, it's not a real life experience. It's not a real life situation where God will not appear before us. How can we answer his letter? So, but it is something different. Once in a while, we can go out of the way also, not always. Okay, because when a child who's from a very background, I mean, area, situation, when he is asked to imagine about something that he has never met in his life, it will be very difficult for him. So we can make the situations simple as to suit to his need. So this is how the task crosses its stage. Every task crosses its 3 stages, and it is continued as a homework. There should be coordination between, not between, among these stages. Actually, the pre-task cycle, task cycle, post-task, and the continuation as a homework or assignment. So there should be proper coordination among these stages. And you know, every task should have particularly some 3 gaps. So let us just see. Yeah, this is what I was telling about the tasks, the 3 tasks. Yeah. The first one is the teacher instructing the students, giving explanation to the students. And the second task, it tells how the students make plans, how they discuss among themselves and make their plans. And the third task tells, third one is, third stage, it shows the performance of the students before the other students. That's what we could see here. And I was telling about 3 gaps. So the first one is information gap, and the second one is reasoning gap and opinion gap. So these gaps will be there mostly in all the tasks. These gaps will be there. So hereafter, when you give some tasks to the students, you please think whether these gaps are there in your tasks, whether it really plays a role in your task, the task that you give to your students. Information gap is something that each student has in a team. For example, in a team, you give a task for each team, you give a task of, finding a solution to a particular problem, a problem solving task. How to stop the wastage of water at school. So that may be a particular task that you may be giving to your students. So you divide the students into teams, and in each team, if there are 5 students in each student will have one or the other information. So that makes a gap. And this information gap is filled in by sharing. This is what is information gap. And at the lower level, if a picture is given to the students, a piece of a picture is given to the student, given to all the 5 students or 6 students in a group, and if they are asked to join all the pictures and make one complete picture, that is the information gap. at one level, at the lower level. So likewise, each member of a particular team will have one or the other information, some information, and this information is pulled in. This information is collected. All the pieces of information are collected, and their ideas are made into one, and they complete, they perform their task. And when it comes to the reasoning gap, the second one, the reasoning gap, this also happens in each group, which touches their, which makes an appeal to their logic, the students' logic. So in information, you needn't have any logic at all. You collect only information, the basic information, that's enough. Here, this reasoning gap, it really, it makes an appeal to the students' logic. If at all the topic is, as I told, if they talk about how to solve the problem of wasting water at school. So here they have to use their logic. How we can stop that? What's the reason behind that? So what's reason or reasons behind this wastage? And how can we stop this wastage of water? So likewise, they have to analyze, they have to make a research, and they have to analyze. That's what is called reasoning gap. And the next one is opinion gap. And when it comes to this opinion gap, it tells about each participant's personal opinion. And that's why we say each one has to be given equal importance. We may know that in a team, if there are 5 to 6 members or 7 members, in a team, all the children will not have the same capacity, all the children will not have the same mindset. There will be introverts, there will be extroverts also. Some children would come out very openly, shedding their inhibition, and some children would be would hide themselves inside their shells. So that has to be, I mean, brought out. Their ideas also have to be brought out. This opinion gap, that's what means the opinion gap. So these gaps should be there. They have to be coordinated well in any task. So a teacher should be aware of all these things. So now what gap is now, I mean, fulfilled? What gap is there? In what way this gap is, I mean, mended by the children? How do they coordinate? So that has to be monitored by the teacher. So that's how TBL works. There is a task-based learning works, and it has a lot of advantages. And so we can go to the advantages of task-based learning. I just show only pictures. So yeah, so only pictures, you can guess whatsoever. Communication, real communication is done, and sharing of ideas is done by this task-based learning. Then it uplifts the confidence, level of confidence of every individual. It makes persons think also. And the next one is it shares ideas of the students, and then it talks about their personal experience and sharing their experience also. Excuse me. Their experience also, and it enables the students to work in a team, to work as a team, and it makes them enjoy. It motivates them and it makes them enjoy. So there are not only these benefits, there are so many other benefits also. When they work in a team, it teaches them adjustment, it teaches them strengthen their interpersonal skills, and it teaches them to work in real life situations. It teaches them really to communicate better with their peers and to improve their skills of communication. So it does plenty of benefits to the students. There are so many advantages. And if at all there are any disadvantages, if you consider there are disadvantages, I strongly would say it's all because of the teachers. Actually, we are the creators of those disadvantages also, because children are children. Students always play the role of only the students. And if they are mischievous, if they are distractive, and if they are playful in the class, and if they seem to be lazy, if they are not fast enough, inactive, So it all has to be managed by the teacher, by the teachers, actually. If the task is not done well by the students, if they do it very slowly, so it is the main reason should have been the teacher did not design the task properly. The teacher did not consider the mindset of the students, I mean, the thinking level of the students properly. So actually, we have to keep the mental abilities of the students also while preparing for the tasks. To according to their mindset, to their mental abilities, we have to prepare. If a child is lazy, it's all because that he is not excited by the task. He doesn't find the excitement of doing the task. At times, the teacher might bring a very wonderful task, and the children would be too very excited, and too much of anything is not good for, and too much of anything is good for nothing. So what happens is the children spoil the whole task, and they don't do it. Either they complete it very fast, or they deviate from the subject also. At times, the children are not able to complete the task in the particular hour, in their particular period. So the teacher has to plan the task to be completed at the right time, at the right place. So that's how the tasks have to be done. And after, I mean, yeah. So if you just, I mean, I am not very sure about the syllabus of every other state, but what we had been given training was about this common syllabus, equity in syllabus. When we were given training about that, we were actually told by the resource persons that the government has taken so many steps to improve actually it is obvious the government has taken steps to improve the quality of education rather than the quantity of education.
Yes,
So
sir. Yes, ma'am.
yeah,
Our state also has taken the same step.
yeah, really. So
We are
all over
trying,
India,
equity is there.
yes, okay, very good. So what happens is it has given much consideration to the quality of education. So previously the teachers, especially the teachers of language, we had followed plenty of other methods. We had followed various other tasks, and the tasks vary from teacher to teacher. If I was interested, if I was resourceful, if I am resourceful in giving my students innumerable tasks, I could do it on my own. The other teacher necessarily, he or she need not follow my task, the task that I give in my class. He could do it differently on his own, depending on his uniqueness. That's what was done previously. We didn't have proper guidance. If a few teachers were resourceless, they did not have any proper resource. They didn't have any proper idea or experience on giving any tasks to the students. The students, her students or his students will go, their classes will be dull, would be dull. That's what was the condition previously. But it's for about 3 years now, this particular system of following curriculum expectations and learning outcomes and pedagogical activities, these things have been included in the textbooks. I suppose you also follow these things in your textbooks. So these curriculum expectations are common for the students who belong to particular stage. For example, the primary students from 1 to 5th, this classes 1 to 5th, they have the same set of curricular expectations. So when a child starts from standard 1 to standard 5th, when he or she reaches standard 5th, he or she, the student, has to complete, fulfill the expectations which had been designed by the government. It has been actually designed by the experts, scholars. And likewise, from 6th to 8th, the upper primary students have been given some curricular expectations. It's been given in their textbooks themselves. So the expectations are same for the students of standard 6 to 8th. And the next is these expectations are to be fulfilled through some learning outcomes. So if the learning outcomes at every class are fulfilled, they definitely will be able to meet up with their curricular expectations. So they definitely will be able to challenge the curricular expectations. That's what is the idea. Because if the government gives only the expectations, curricular expectations, all the teachers would struggle on how to complete, how to challenge, how to make it a challenge to the students. So the government has given initiative and giving the learning outcomes also. Learning outcomes are nothing but the result, end result of the learning, the output of what we teach to the students and what the students learn in a particular year, particular academic year. That's what are the learning outcomes. So the government has given the learning outcomes also in the books, textbook itself for each term. So they give each semester or each term, and these learning outcomes have to be fulfilled through certain pedagogical processes. And these pedagogical processes are nothing but the tasks that we are talking about. So as I told, if at all a few teachers don't have any idea about what kind of tasks that they could follow in their classes, they are fully guided by the government by these pedagogical activities. There are about 25 to 30 pedagogical activities given for each class. For class 1, class 2, likewise for each class, there are about 25 to 30 pedagogical activities given, out of which, depending on the nature of the topic, the nature of the lesson or nature of the poem or nature of the grammar pattern or supplementary reading, whatsoever the teacher teaches, the teacher can choose the particular task, particular pedagogical process and practice in the class. So if the teacher feels that nothing of those pedagogical activities suited to her class, and the nature of her students, she or he could frame something on his or her own completely differently and execute in their classes. Different kind of tasks also can be. It is a guidance which has been given by the government. So I could just show it is just a sample, but not all. The curriculum expectations, they are only samples. I've just copied and pasted only very little just to show that these are being given. And these are the learning outcomes which are expected. It is for the lower level, maybe for standard 1 or 2. And these are the pedagogical processes. I've mentioned they are samples and not all. So that's how that's how the government helps the teachers in uplifting the standard of the education of, standard of not only education, language teachers, to uplift the standard of the teachers as well as the students also. So I feel that we have been given enough, actually we have been given enough resources by the government, and we have enough resources just around us, plenty of resources around us. And we should not forget a fact that not only us, not only teachers, but even the students also have the same resources. So as I told, when I was working as a principal, when I appointed particular teacher for some scientific science subject, some physical science subject, one particular student came, ma'am, this teacher teaches exactly what's in the book. Then why do we want her? She doesn't teach, she doesn't say something more. We want something more. The same thing was told by one such student. So students always want something more, and we have to keep ourselves in the process of updating ourselves. And actually we are focusing on task-based listening, right? I just recall a Chinese proverb now. It just came to my mind. It tells, give me a fish, yeah, give me a fish I eat for a day, and teach me how to fish. I'll eat for a lifetime. So exactly that's what we do to our children. If we spoon feed them, they'll be happy that particular time. They'll be happy, satisfied, glum the particular time. But you know what they will do? What will they do the next moment? We should think about their future. So we should teach them how to fish. That's what is the duty of teachers, especially the teachers of English, because we have to make the children face the society, because the society needs so much of English nowadays. So we have to make the children face the society. And as Confucius, a Chinese philosopher, says, I see, I forget. This is quite familiar. Being teachers, we definitely have come across this. I see, I forget. I hear, I remember, I do, I understand. So it's what doing that makes people understand. It's exactly the definition for this task-based listening. I hope you agree with me. So being teachers, what we do is we set up the ladder. We always call ourselves ladders. We are ladders for children, and we just stand and the children they stamp on us. No, not like that. I don't agree with that. We set up the ladder for children. We make them climb on that. We assist them. We facilitate them. That's what is our part. We create opportunities for them to go up in their lives, to learn, to to I mean to uplift themselves, to improve their skills. That's what we do. We motivate them. We make them feel the excitement. If learning a language or learning about a language is an adventure, we make them feel the thrill of an expedition. That's what we do. That's what is our job. So we set up a ladder for the children to go up, and we can call ourselves torch bearers, as we always do. And when we call ourselves torch bearers, when we talk about the word torch, I I always remember these words. I've shared in a few training programs also. That is the words of George Bernard Shaw. It comes in my mind because I strongly believe in his words. Life is no brief candle to me. It's a splendid torch that I've got hold for the moment, and I want it to burn as brightly as possible before I pass it on to the future generation, before I hand it on to the future generation. These are the exact words. And I really believe in these words. He definitely might not have uttered these words for the teachers, but I take it for myself. I feel that we really are the torch bearers, and we have the torch in our hands, and we should make our torches burn as bright as possible, brightly as possible. And if teachers do this, definitely, teachers of English especially, if we do this, definitely, we will be the most favorite teacher of our students. So thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for this wonderful opportunity. I feel very happy for meeting all of you, because it's a rare chance to meet people from, I don't know whether inside India or all over India. I'm not very sure about it, but it's really a rare chance. And I'm happy that I made use of to satiate my thirst, or to satiate my. Okay, thank you
Yes,
for this
ma'am.
opportunity once again. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay,
It was a wonderful session.
yeah, thank you.
Uh, there are a few questions,
Okay,
but I would require the participants to unmute themselves and ask the question.
okay.
Hello, ma'am.
Yeah,
Hi, I'm Nanda Shingane from New English School, Sakri. Can you
okay.
give some examples of task-based learning in virtual classes now?
I'm sorry, I'm not able to get you.
I want to know some examples of task-based learning for nowadays situation.
Examples of what?
Task-based
Task-based
TBL.
learning.
No, your voice is breaking. Your voice breaks.
Okay, ma'am.
Example.
Some task-based learning in nowadays situations. Examples for this virtual learning.
Task-based learning. You want to know some tasks?
Yeah, some
Yes, ma'am.
examples.
Some examples. It's okay. So we could give so many examples. I cited so many examples. We can ask the students depending on their levels. So which classes are you handling now?
I'm 9th and 10th standard, ma'am.
It's okay. So the task can be even a bit little higher. The standard of the task can be higher. You can ask them to fill in forms. You can ask them to teach. I mean, you can teach them to fill in forms because they are all practical. They all come under real life situations. You can ask them to plan for a tour. You can present a problem to the students, and you can ask them to find solution. You can conduct debates, and you can conduct group activities like asking questions and answering. Okay, there are plenty of activities we can conduct for the students of 9th and 10th because they are able to think better.
Yes, Shikha.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Are they enough?
Yes,
Hello?
I
I
will
feel.
add something.
Okay.
So any other question? Someone has kept 2 devices. Yes. Okay, any other question? So ma'am, there are no questions.
Okay.
So can
Ma'am,
I, yes,
can we have the questions from the chat box?
yes, if you can see,
Yeah, I can.
yes.
So there was a question like how to apply task-based learning in case of adults.
Yeah. Adults, you mean students? Hello?
Yes, ma'am, we can hear you.
Yeah. What's your question?
How to use this task-based
Learning.
in case of adults? Yes, in case of adults.
Adults.
Yeah.
You mean teachers?
Yes. How can we apply it to adults?
Adults. So you mean to say that you play the role of resource persons and you want to use this task-based activity in a group of teachers? Do you mean like that?
Ma'am, this is a question in the chat box.
I'm sorry.
Alka will leave that question.
No
Okay.
problem. No, we can have plenty of activities for adults also because I have conducted many training programs and we had so many activities for teachers also. We had dictation run for teachers. You might have come across this in net also. Are you familiar with this dictation run? You can write some quote, some paragraph. You can split into sentences and you can number them and stick in so many places in the wall. And you can divide the teachers into groups. And one member has to go around and he or she has to come to the group once again. Not one member. One member has to sit in the place and write. The other members have to go around and find all the sentences and come and dictate. That's what is dictation run. So they have to come and dictate to the person who is writing, and at last the one who brings the complete paragraph or the complete number of sentences will be the winners. Likewise, there are plenty of activities tasks we can give to the teachers. The same tasks can be conducted for the students also, especially in memorators. While memorizing the poems, we can use this technique. It will be difficult for the students to do rote memory. Of course, students will be capable of doing anything. They can memorize, not 10 lines, even 20 lines. But what about the students who are, who are not, who are less capable of doing that? So for such students, we can have these activities, these kind of tasks, which would help them to learn faster. We can write the lines of the memorators and we can stick them on the walls. Two lines or a single line. So that it would be easy when the children are given such activities. It would be easy when they bring those lines back to their team and dictate it. They will remember those lines. So likewise, we can conduct many activities for adults.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
I'm Mrs. Bansode from Little Angels High School.
Okay.
Ma'am, let me just say it was a very nice session and learned a
you.
lot from you, ma'am.
Thank you.
But just wanted to ask, there are certain topics in grammar which students find very difficult and teachers also find difficult to teach.
Okay.
Like, for example, clauses.
Okay.
So I was just wondering if there could be some task-based learning applicable to this topic to make it interesting and easier. Can you just throw light on this, please?
Okay. So actually, children of government schools learn clauses from 8th standard, and they start learning phrases at first and then clauses. So what I have done initially is I've used only the chalk and talk method. I've written on the board. I've given them rules, and I've taught them. I mean, to my students initially. But what we can do is we can ask the students. We can ask a group of students. There are actually in classes. There are 3 parts, right? 2 parts: main clause and subordinate clause, or subordinate clauses, right? So we can make the students either jumble. We can jumble the words in a sentence, and we can ask the students to rearrange them as clause: meaningful clause, main clause, and meaningful subordinate clause. And we can ask the students to find their partners, the main clauses and subordinate clauses. So one such task can be done. And another task, we can ask one student to play the role of main clause, and the other number of students, if there are 4 students in a class, one has to play the role of subordinate clause, or two have to play the role of subordinate clauses, and the other students have to play the conjunctions, subordinate conjunctions. So likewise, it all depends on our imagination. So such group activities will make the children understand better, because a main clause has a subject and a predicate, and a subordinate conjunction, it connects the subordinate clause with the main clause. So they have to first understand what subordinate conjunctions are. So we have to give them a list of conjunctions at first, and we can ask the students to play subordinate conjunction also. So and we can make them understand that not only one subordinate conjunction can be there in a sentence, but more than 2 or 3 conjunctions can be there. And depending on the subordinate conjunctions, we can add more subordinate clauses also in the sentences. So such things can be taught through such activities. Okay, have I given some assistance at least?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Okay. Any question?
Yeah, someone has raised a hand.
Okay.
Yes, unmute yourself. Yes.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good evening.
Good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
Okay.
Thank you very much for your informative session. Thank you. It's a really marvelous one. But I have a question about task-based activities. How can we apply it online for adults? How can we apply task-based activities for adults or for university students? Thank you.
Okay.
For university. Oh, that was your question.
Okay.
Ma'am has already answered that question.
Yeah. Which place is she from?
Hello?
Yeah. Which place is she from?
Ma'am, you are from where?
I'm
She's
from
just
Egypt.
written Egypt.
Okay. Which
I'm from
classes are you
Egypt.
handling? Which classes do you handle? Which age group of students?
Do you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I can hear you. Which age group of students do you handle?
No, I'm not. I'm a professor in university.
Okay.
So I'm asking for task-based activities. How can I apply them to adults?
Adult students, okay. So even for them, there are so many activities which we can handle. We can ask the students, we can divide them into 2 or 3 groups, or even 4 groups. We can ask the students to debate on some topic. We can have a discussion in the class. We can give the topic to them. We can throw the topic at them. We can divide them into groups, and let us give them some time to discuss. We can give them some time to discuss on the topic, and each group has to come and present their ideas, their opinion, and they have to argue, or they have to support their ideas, their own ideas. So at last, after the presentation of each group, the teacher has to end. She has to sum up, and she has to present her ideas too in this way, her or his ideas. That's one. And then teaching language. This kind of activity task, it enables the students to think, to listen to the ideas of others. So it improves the listening skill, thinking skill, arguing skill, and defining skill, redefining skill, giving a shape, structuring skill. Okay, so likewise, these ideas are helping students like that. And if you want the language ability, the pronunciation of the students to be improved, you can ask them to listen to songs. I mean, songs which are pertaining to their level. Okay, so listen to songs and a number of times. Okay, it depends on you. Actually, the teacher has to decide. You can ask them to listen to songs and a few times, and then you can mute the audio and you can show the verses first, and you can ask them to sing. Then you can mute the audio and you can remove the verses, and you can ask the students to sing. So it can go step by step. It will improve the pronunciation of the students, and it will improve their vocabulary also. I followed for the students who belong to the lower level. It has brought a great change in our students.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
So I feel there are no more questions.
Okay.
Hello, ma'am.
Yeah.
Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. I have a question actually.
Yeah.
As we are taking online classes nowadays, so
Yeah.
we have lack of time also. So can you give us any idea? Can you give me any idea that how can we teach literature chapter so that we can save time also, and it can be interesting explanation for a student of class 8?
Okay. So no, actually, I think you're teaching students belonging to college students or university students or school students.
No, class 8, ma'am. Like
Class 8.
Students of class 8.
Okay, so activities like riddles can be given, and if the students are in a particular class, I mean, they will be in a particular group, right? There will be an admin. There will be an admin. The teacher will be the admin, right? So you can divide the students into 2 groups, and you can. I don't know what kind of facilities you have in having online teaching. You can give instruction to the students, and you can ask them to draw pictures depending on your instructions. The teacher can play the role of an instructor. You can have a shape in your mind, or you can have a picture drawn in your hand, and looking at that picture, you can give ideas, you can give instruction to the students, and you can ask them to draw the picture. Suppose you have the picture of, a simple picture of a train in your hand. You can ask the children to draw a sleeping line first, and then an equal parallel sleeping line at the bottom. Then you can ask them to draw a semicircle at each end. So likewise, you have to give the shape alone, not the exact shape, but like this, a semicircle. And you can ask them to draw in the middle of the top sleeping line, you draw a perpendicular line. Okay, likewise, you give instruction to the students and ask them to draw in their notebook. And at last, you check who comes up with the right shape. Okay, this is one such activity that you can do. Then riddles can be asked every now and then, just to take them away from their boredoms. And then, you mean literature?
Yes, ma'am, to explain the chapter.
Literature, yeah. If it's literature, you can conduct a quiz. Okay, then you can tell parallel stories, which is parallel local stories. For example, any story from any literature will have some relevance to our local stories, right? So you can cite such examples to our local stories, and we can teach with interest like that.
Okay, thank you
You
so
can
much.
ask,
ma'am.
yeah, you can ask
Thank
the
you, ma'am.
students to produce stories also. It's okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay.
We are running short of
Okay,
time.
fine,
So
okay.
I request Alfia ma'am to give the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Renu ma'am. Good evening, everyone. On behalf
Good
of
Continue, ma'am.
On behalf of the members of MNET, I would like to thank Mrs. T. Senthil Kani for volunteering her time and providing us with such an informative and enriching presentation on task-based education. The topic explained by you will be of immense help for our teachers. The message towards the end of your session was quite apt. I also want to appreciate the constant efforts of Mr. Nadeem Khan for providing the necessary technical support to MNET. Many thanks to the host and convener, Mrs. Renu Dhotri, for organizing the series of workshops through the platform of MNET. These workshops have enabled the teachers to stay updated with the latest methods and tools in varied areas of teaching, which can be utilized by them in the classroom as well as for online teaching purposes. I would like to extend our thanks to the participants from various countries for effectively participating in the various MNET workshops held till date, the spread of which is increasing with every passing workshop. We at MNET appreciate the positive feedback obtained from all the participants. We look forward to such enthusiasm from our participants in the future as well. Once again, a huge thanks to everyone. Have a great evening.
Thank you, Alfia
Thank
ma'am.
you. Thank you.
Thank
madam.
you,
Thank you
Senthil
so
Kani.
much.
you.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much, all of you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, participants.
Thank
So
you,
I
ma'am.
end
Thank
the
you so
meeting.
much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very
Thank
much
you.
indeed.
Thank you. Thank you for this wonderful
Thank you.
Thank
opportunity.
you.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay.
you.